Chapter 92. The Strange Captain 3. Interesting, you're the first newbie to ask such a question after hearing my introduction. In that case, I'll talk a little more with you. After you kill a desperado and a savage, the spoils of war will be yours. If everyone attacks together, the spoils will naturally be distributed. Also, if you see some people in the main city, it's best to avoid them. You can't afford to offend them. As the captain spoke, he pointed to the distant street. There was a youth wearing a light purple Taoist robe there. He was walking proudly through the crowd and stepped into a shop. The shopkeeper of the shop respectfully went out to welcome him. When everyone in the surroundings saw the Taoist robe he was wearing, they all had respectful expressions and lowered their heads. Even some of the patrolling disciples were the same. It was as though this person's appearance was like a divine son who had entered the mortal world. No one dared to look at him directly. Xu Qing's eyes narrowed. You have to remember that in the Seven Blood Eyes main city, the people in dark-colored Taoist robes and those in light-colored Taoist robes cannot be provoked. The former are Foundation building seniors on the mountain and you can't afford to offend them. As for the latter, they are core disciples who can stay on the mountain. Their cultivation levels aren't at the Foundation building realm, but they are lucky. It's not a big deal if 100 of us die, but it's a big deal if one of these lucky core disciples dies. Xu Qing fell silent and lifted his head to look at the 7 peaks of the 7 blood eyes in the distance. Just be envious, live well and cultivate well. When you advance to the Foundation building stage, these core disciples will have to lower their heads when they see you. The captain chewed on an apple with a normal expression. Also, let me remind you again. On the surface, the sect doesn't allow grey-robed disciples to kill each other, but it's only on the surface. So, you have to learn how to deal with corpses. It's best if you take the other party's contribution points and spirit stones, and let him return to 0 to be expelled by the array formation. The captain coughed and gestured with his chin toward the street on the other side. Just like that person. Xu Qing followed the captain's gaze and saw a grey-robed youth lying there. This youth was on the verge of death and his entire body was covered in injuries. At this moment, his eyes were filled with resentment and grief. However, his mouth was smashed and his limbs were broken. He couldn't say a word, let alone move. The identity token on his chest had returned to 0. Very soon, Xu Qing witnessed with his own eyes that the time limit for the youth to leave had passed. As a beam of black light descended from the sky, his figure twitched intensely and his body and spirit were destroyed, turning into ashes. His vitality seemed to be sucked away, merging into nothingness and disappearing. This scene caused Xu Qing's eyes to narrow. As for the pedestrians in the surroundings, they seemed to be used to this. They didn't even take a look and continued to leave in a hurry with indifference. This person has committed many acts of murder and robbery against fellow disciples. It's normal for him to be killed by someone now. The captain smiled and was about to continue speaking when his expression suddenly froze as he looked not far away. Xu Qing, who was at the side, turned his head almost at the same time as him and looked at the alley not far away. There were fluctuations of anomalous substances there. The place they were at was considered a bustling city, but this alley was very dark and out of place. Most of the people on the road avoided it. How dare this happen in broad daylight? The captain of Team 6 sighed. Junior brother, wait for me for a while. With that, he took the apple that was almost finished and walked toward the alley not far away. Xu Qing's eyes narrowed as he watched the captain enter the alley. In just over 10 breaths of time, the figure of the captain of Team 6 walked out of the alley while eating an apple. A faint smell of blood permeated the air. Xu Qing glanced at the alley. There's an unlucky fellow who had a problem with his mutated beast organ transplant and turned into a mutated beast. I advise you not to take this path in the future. Although it can quickly increase your cultivation, there will be endless trouble in the future. The captain of Team 6 smiled gently with a harmless expression as he continued walking. Xu Qing fell silent. The person he killed last night also had mutated beast organs transplanted. Before this, Xu Qing didn't know that this could be done. At that moment, he nodded and looked at his captain eating the apple happily. Hence, he picked up the portion he bought and took a bite as well. It was indeed very fragrant. Just like that, the two of them ate the apple as they walked through the city. Time slowly flowed by. The captain of Team 6 ate quickly while Xu Qing ate slowly. At the back, the captain looked at the other apple in Xu Qing's hand many times. Xu Qing also looked at him and took another bite. The captain rubbed his nose and took out an orange from his pocket to eat. "I'll tell you about the recent missions. Our main goal these days is to search for the remnants of Night Dove." Night Dove. Xu Qing's eyes narrowed. Night Dove is a very mysterious and huge organization in the Nanhuang continent. They specialize in selling children and cultivators to be treasure nurturers. It's fine if they do such dirty things outside, but they actually came to my 7 blood eyes to do such a thing recently, causing the commoners to be anxious. If this continues, those big shots on the mountain will be unhappy when they see that their income is low. You saw it last night as well. One of their leaders has been killed by the director. The remaining survivors need our homicide department to move out together and eliminate the root of the problem. When Xu Qing heard this, a cold glint flashed in his eyes. He immediately thought of the old man from the combo whom he had killed. His eyes slowly narrowed as he nodded lightly. The captain of Team 6 was a smart person. He swept a glance at Xu Qing and seemed to have seen something. However, he didn't ask about it. Instead, he brought Xu Qing around the city and introduced him to the patrol team. On the way, Xu Qing saw a wandering child. Hence, he thought of his captain's previous actions and gave him a spirit coin. Is this also your informant?" The captain blinked and looked at Xu Qing with a spurious smile. Xu Qing started and understood. He didn't say anything, but he felt like he had been played. Soon, when the sun was about to set, they arrived at the harbor. As they walked in, an honest voice rang out from afar at a place where a large number of goods were being transported and piled up into small mountains. "If you say another word, I'll tear your mouth apart." Xu Qing lifted his head and looked over. He immediately saw a 7th Peak's disciple squatting beside a pile of goods not far away. This person was a middle-aged man. He looked ordinary and honest. He was the one who said those words. In front of him was an old man dressed in luxurious clothes. At that moment, his expression was filled with anger. Clearly, he had gotten into an argument with the middle-aged man earlier. "Whose mouth do you want to tear apart?" Zhang San, the captain of Team 6, finished the orange in his hand and took out another pear. After taking a bite, he walked over. Upon seeing the captain of Team 6, the expression of the old man changed and he hurriedly left. As for the middle-aged disciple, who was sitting there, he turned his head and smiled foolishly at the captain. After greeting him, he smiled foolishly at Xu Qing as well. "This is Xu Qing, a new member of our homicide department," the captain of Team 6 introduced with a smile. After that, he pointed at the middle-aged disciple and spoke to Xu Qing. "His name is Zhang San. He used to be a member of ours. Later on, he was afraid of death and was transferred to the transportation department. Don't be fooled by his simple and honest appearance. The pirate rogue cultivators who died in his hands. You can fill this place up." The captain of Team 6 gestured toward the majestic goods. Xu Qing immediately became vigilant. What made him even more focused was that he didn't sense any strong fluctuations from the other party's body. If what the Team 6 captain said was true, then there was clearly something strange about this ordinary-looking Zhang San. How could that be? "It's all rumors. I only killed a few petty thieves." Sigh. "I still feel pity for them even now." Zhang San helplessly rubbed his hands and continued to smile foolishly. Xu Qing fell silent. He didn't see any hint of pity on the other party's face. "Junior brother Xu Qing, don't listen to the captain's nonsense. Please take care of me in the future." As Zhang San spoke, he flipped his body and handed Xu Qing a piece of beast bone. "A meeting gift.